Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for leveraging AI and automation in field service. My name is Tina from the Zinier team, and joining me today is our speaker, Steve Barr. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box in your Zoom control panel. We'll have some time for questions at the end. In addition, we are recording this session and we'll make it available for everyone within a few days' time. Now, without further ado, we'll turn this over to Steve, and I'll let Steve introduce himself.
Hey everybody, thank you for that, Tina, and welcome to this session on a Thursday afternoon for me in the UK and for wherever you are in the world. So my name's Stephen Barr, and I'm the VP of Sales here at Zinier. I've been with Zinier since just the start of the year, so relatively new to the company, but excited to be part of the team and the growth. In terms of my history, I've been in enterprise software sales for about 25, 26 years, working at a number of companies such as IFS. Before that, a company called QAD, where I sold ERP systems, although for someone my age, MRP systems. Prior to that, I had a real job. I was a production planner at a manufacturing site where I did scheduling. So, you know, 35 years later, scheduling is still at my heart, and that's why I have a whiteboard behind me, if you can see that, and because I like scheduling. But hopefully, we don't need a whiteboard anymore, and today's about optimizing that scheduling. So what we're going to talk about today as we move on to the agenda, and Tina's very kindly moving my screen on, we're going to talk about a number of key aspects. We're going to look at some of the challenges that field service are facing today, which I'm sure all of you on the call will be familiar with. We're going to look at some of the history and how field service has evolved over the years. And then obviously the heart of what we're talking about today is how AI and automation are optimizing field service, or how they should be. And what we want to try and get across today is, you know, how you could leverage AI as part of your field service optimization process and journey that you're probably on. And really, why does AI matter? What's the opportunity, and why does it matter to you? And how does it come back to real life? Because we're seeing every day that AI is part of our life. More and more, we're not having to think for ourselves, because whether it's our phone, our TV, our car, telling us if we could travel in our car, telling us what we should be doing and what we should be thinking. So how do we bring that into a business concept? Just to bring it to real life today, it's my daughter's 17th birthday. And I wish someone had created an AI tool that told me which mood she was going to wake up in each day, but I'm not sure AI is yet that advanced. So, but bringing it back down to today's conversation, let's move on to the challenges that field service are facing. So if we look at the main three areas, or three particular areas that we're looking at in those field service challenges, as we move the slide on, we're looking really at a number of key criteria that are being affected within this field service industry, many of which I'm sure you're feeling yourselves. So it's all about improving customer expectations, or probably dealing with improving customer expectations. You're constantly being hit by the customer, your customers, wanting a more personalized service, almost expecting near perfect results from you, and constantly changing those requirements with very little notice. So, you know, you're constantly dealing with the customer whilst having to manage a business at the same time. Customer is king. We believe that here at Zinier, but I'm sure everybody believes that within their organization. So meeting those customer expectations become paramount to the heart of what you are as a business, and having solutions to assist with that, hopefully, will give you a competitive advantage. But also, our customers are becoming much more used to a consumer experience. So every day, as we said, the bank tells you before you're going to go overdrawn. The holiday app tells you where you should be going based on your previous preferences. So in our day-to-day lives, we're used to AI and automation telling us or suggesting to us options, and people are now applying those to business situations. So it's no longer good enough to have a rigid solution in place and a rigid offering to our customers. We have to have that consumer grade experience to our dealings with our customers. On top of that, we're being overwhelmed by a plethora of data and information across the piece. So whether that's obviously in this sector, IoT, huge amounts of volumes of data coming into us and coming into our field service organizations. And ultimately, as good as we are as humans, there's only so much we can process in a piece of time, in a period of time. So we are now looking at more automation and using that artificial intelligence capability to streamline and react to that data. Data is data, but information is power. So how do we transfer that data into powerful information that we can help transform our businesses? And we're having that explosion. And also, we're seeing a lot of the field service workforce is changing, and it's almost at both ends of the extreme. A lot of our customers and companies within this sector have, an aging workforce where technology is not as well embraced, but also, at the other end, the younger workforce who want more modern technology as they move forward into their working day. So we've got all of those things hitting us as a field service organization. If you move on to the next one, how does that manifest itself? Well, that is the pressures that you're facing is always around doing things quicker. We live in a 24/7 economy, a 24/7 world. So everything is faster. No one no longer will accept, well, it's 5 o'clock, my service desk is closed, I'll give you a call at 9 o'clock tomorrow. That doesn't cut it anymore. It's 24/7. People want instantaneous updates about when their tech will arrive, when their SLA is going to be met, and so on and so on. So we've got to live in that dynamic, quicker environment. Of course, there's always pressures. Our customers, your customers are driving down the cost on you, and you've got to have those cost efficiencies. And typically in a field force organization, people are a huge part of that cost. So how do we get more from the same? It's not always about reducing the headcount, but it's about having more from the same people. So can you have more field techs with the same number of back office dispatchers? Make yourselves more efficient, because just streamlining a few processes and a few percentage points out of that could really make a huge difference. Again, we talked about that personalized service. People want what's right for them, and they want how they deal with their field service providers to be personalized for them. So the experience, the way that when you go on site for one particular customer, they want to capture a certain set of data and information which might be different to when you go to another customer. So having that personalized service to your clients is absolutely key. And being agile. Again, it all comes back down to time, speed, and getting things and processes changed as quickly as possible within your organization, and having a technology base as part of your digital transformation that will support that agile process. And we'll touch on some of those points. So as we move forward, just a stat that I thought was worth mentioning and pausing for, and McKinsey came up with this number, but it's that 40% of field service technicians' workday is wasted on non-value-added processes, and that's different across all industries. But just take a few seconds to think about that in your business, and it might be too big a number, but if you just extract that and put it on top of your field force and thought, if I could, if they are 40% inefficient, which I'm not saying that they are, but if you put that number on, what kind of ROI improvements could you get? Even if we just reduce that by a few percentage points, if you've got hundreds of techs out there. So, this is why field service optimization and bringing in AI into that is really critical to field service organisations, because this improvement is key. So what are some of the pressures that you're seeing, that you're being bombarded when you're working in this industry? Of course you are. You've got all of these pressures onto the field service operation. You know, the SLA is about to be breached, the field tech phone's in sick, the traffic is slower when you're driving through the centre of London, maybe in a few months' time when we're allowed out of lockdown. So all of these things are coming in, and often it's the dispatcher with a system who is trying to jeopardy manage those on a rolling basis, and the day becomes a little bit frazzled and frustrated. But there's only so much that can be done manually, and whilst we've always got to rely on the expertise of people, it's often a bottleneck, or you have a system that has predefined rules. So if this happens, then do that, and it's a one-way transaction. As we build AI into some of our processes, the AI allows us to do more than just a one-way workflow. It allows us to build on historical information and data and multiple variables of data to come up with a predictive way forward that can help and speed up some of that efficiency. So an example of how that might manifest itself on the next slide is a workflow that I'm sure is typical in many industries. I know it's typical in a lot of the customers that we deal with, that they have a lot of siloed pieces of information, whether that's disparate systems or manual processes across the way. So, you know, you have a ticketing system that captures the information for the request, which creates a works order, which might manually be entered into another system. And then someone is juggling that scheduling. Which text do I have available? What skills do they have? Where are they? And I'm doing that dispatching out to the field techs. And then you're doing sort of a in isolation checklist on the mobile and sending that back to the back office, who have to verify that information, check it, format it, recapture information, put it into another system that they then send out to their customers for sign off, which the customer might not sign off. So then it goes back through the loop. If we can streamline that value process, that value chain, then obviously we gain a lot of efficiencies. But then if you add on top of that, where we can automate some of those processes and bring in the AI capabilities, which I'll touch on in a few moments, then clearly we're moving even further ahead. So summary of this section, you know, how does that manifest itself into the processes that you're looking at in the next slide? It's around really the business challenges and the technology challenges. So you've probably got some inefficient operational processes that are dependent on those manual tasks. Have you got true visibility out into the field, real-time visibility, you know, the GPS capturing of information, the system knowing that the SLA could be breached, that real-time visibility. And coming out of that, you've got unpredictable operating costs because you've not got that real-time information. On the technology side, we see a lot of companies have very rigid and inflexible solutions that with limited configurability to give you that customer specific capabilities that you need. As I said, all customers want something new, often very costly because they're legacy systems that are no longer supported and therefore have a cost and a risk associated with them. And just the development cycle is, you know, months and months, often years, to get new features and functions in. So we're seeing companies that sit in a lot of these buckets. And that's hopefully where the power of AI automation and perhaps Zinier could be of benefit to yourselves. So if we move on to onto the next section, the evolution of field service. I mean, these challenges are not new, and I'm sure there's people on the call who are sort of hopefully nodding, going, "Yeah, I can relate to that." Or maybe others who are going, "No, we've done all of this, and you know, we went through this pain a number of years ago, and are now looking at automating." So wherever you are on that journey, there's always things that we can improve. And that evolution, as we see on the next slide, really started out in the 80s. You know, when field service became a really big growth sector in economies, you know, as people moved from sort of a more industrial manufacturing base to being service-based economies. And most business systems then were based on, you know, finance and HR, and field service was the poor cousin and didn't have the sophisticated or some systems back then. So, but we had to do something. So what did we do? You know, we gave our techs pen and paper to fill in their worksheets. We had the whiteboard behind the dispatcher who was using the ticketing systems to do the scheduling, which worked on, you know, at 6 o'clock on Monday morning when you scheduled for the week. But by 6:30, when the first issue came along and you got to reschedule everything, you know, it just wasn't cutting it. So things moved on, and companies developed their own systems, whether that was, you know, in Excel and Access databases and so on, to try and streamline some of those processes. And, you know, it was specific to the business requirements, but it, you know, still lots of silos of information, difficult to use, and lots of, you know, disparate systems that didn't really give you that end-to-end process. So then in the 2000s, we started seeing companies come onto the market who were looking specifically at field service as a solution to deliver kind of standardized out-of-the-box solution and to digitize some of those workflows and bolt on some point solutions to give the whole process. And we see a lot of companies with a lot of those legacy systems right now. But whilst they may say, you know, they're out of the box, they are often quite rigid. You know, if you want to move outside of out of the box, it's a time-consuming and costly exercise. Once you go live, how agile is it to move? And the technologies are quite outdated. You know, we're not here to sort of knock anyone else's propositions, but unless things like AI, and the topic of today's conversation, are at the heart of your product and solution when you start, it's very difficult to backward engineer and bring AI in at a later date on top of legacy technology. So, you know, that's where a lot of the market is, and where we see ourselves today. Obviously, you know, I wouldn't have the words VP sales on if I wasn't trying to say that things have moved on. And now there are, you know, Zinier being one of those AI-powered field service automation tools that have AI from the start. You know, we were built and designed with AI at the heart of what we do to allow us to take our customers to the next step. And it's whatever you do in terms of your technology, thinking about bringing AI into your portfolio is something that we suggest that you do. Okay, and looking at moving on from that, if we look at a number of areas that are shaping that thought process, there's a lot of things that we could talk about today. You'll be pleased to know, because we're already 20 minutes in, that we're only talking about the first one. But it's worth mentioning, as I mentioned, you know, Internet of Things has been there for a while. You know, we used to call them integrations. Now it's real-time integrations from devices and pieces of equipment that are giving you real-time information to react upon, and that plethora of data is bombarding as we've talked about. But being able to embrace that will give us huge amounts of efficiencies. Moving into things like AR and virtual reality, you know, doing a remote assist capability. So can you de-skill some of your workforce that you might have more generic? I was talking to a company just last week who were saying they want more generalist techs who can go out on site, but have fewer specialist techs back at base, and they can remote assist. You know, you can see what the engineer on site can see, and you can guide them to do those tasks, as well as real-time intelligence. But the last one is really interesting. I haven't time to talk about today, but you know, something I'm seeing more and more is this on-demand, the gig economy moving into field service. You know, can you ping out to a selected workforce, we've got a task to do, you know, who wants that job? Uberization of field service, and being able to handle that within your system is coming, you know, and all of these things are things that we're thinking about or we have. But today it's about AI and how we move forward with those processes. So often describing, if we move on to the next section, how AI and automation are optimizing field services. You know, it's difficult to try and pin it down because everybody's got their thoughts about what AI might bring and how it might work for them. So we try and condense it into three three main areas that I'll touch on over the next few minutes. Real-time insights, process automation, and actionable recommendations. Leaving the best till last, I think, on this, and hopefully the first two are almost a given for us to be able to claim AI, or anyone to be able to claim AI. So if we move to the real-time insights side, this is really about getting, well, as the name suggests, real-time insights. So whether that's taking information directly from devices, looking at potential SLA breaches that might come in. I mean, again, bringing it back to real life, an example that we were working with last week, we've got a client that we're talking to where they install digital signage. And one of the big impactors for them is the weather. And with AI, if you have feeds from both from the device, but also you have dynamic feeds in from weather systems. So you know that that device has been installed and its temperature has been below a certain limit for so long, and the weather for the next 3-day horizon looks like it's going to get worse. The system is going to predict that you need some maintenance to happen on that device. And it's just having those real-time, that real-time information building into it as an example. But if we move on, that also moves into what do we do with that information? And of course, you might argue that management information and dashboards aren't really tangible AI use cases because you've got those. But it's how do we use those to better forecast the right information going forward? So the output on this screen is a dashboard, which is just reporting, which has been around forever. But it's taking that information and pushing it forward with predictive analysis and machine learning to say, based on this trend, I think that X could happen. And therefore, moving on to the final one, where the real power comes, is the recommendation center, as we call it at Zinier. But the AI tool recommending what you as a business, or you as a tech, or you as a dispatcher should do to prevent something happening before it does, based on the historical data. So it's using rules-based logic and predictive analysis to recommend suggestions going forward. So that's on the real-time analytics. If we move on to the process automation, this is around leveraging the sort of RPA things, the workflow-driven architecture to automate some manual process and accelerate the development through low code. Again, a key strategy, if you've got AI, hand in hand with that should be a low code technology and a low code platform. Because if you're trying to put AI on top of a cumbersome, archaic technology base, my opinion, it's not going to work. So, if you've got the low code capabilities where you've got drag and drop taking minutes and hours, not weeks and months to develop a workflow. So, so you can deploy something really quickly. And just having an example with one of our customers, they were spending, their back office technicians were spending 75–80% of their time taking what they call a closeout package, the end of process reporting, taking that in and checking lots of data. Is this filled in correctly? Does that image look clean and crisp and is not blurry, before they could send it onto the customer? Well, we can create a workflow that makes sure we capture all of the information and then add in an AI capability that automates and checks, is the field, simple examples, is the field completed and the data is within certain ranges? Is the image clear? Can I visually recognize it? Have all of those tasks been done? If so, then do an automated closeout and send the details to the customer. But if not, send to a back office to check. And the AI part of that is it can learn, the machine learning is learning that in the first part of the implementation, the tech's the back office having to say that passes, that passes, that passes. And it's then learning that what constitutes a pass or a fail. And just building in those workflows really speeds up the deployment. If we then move on to the next slide, building into that is all around this hyper automation through the builders. So this will allow us to build back office pages, mobile pages, workflows, and integrations, because it's clearly manifest that a field service solution will sit within a landscape of other solutions. So speed and ease of integration has to be key, and that will increase your time to value and decrease your time to deploy, which is absolutely key. So this hyper automation as part of the delivery is key. And then moving on to the last part, which is probably sad for me to say that I'm excited about talking about, but I think it really is this actionable recommendations. So this is where the true power of AI comes to life, where we're taking all of that operational data, all of that management information, all of that raw data, along with the workflows that we've built together to help accelerate that decision-making process. So it's going to suggest to you and your people what the next process should be. So it's the example I gave before. It's going to rain in 2 days' time. That piece of equipment's been outside and dropped below temperatures. Therefore, I need to do this. Or we've got a skill set within our within our technicians, and that person builds up an experience score based on how quickly they can do a task. And the machine will learn that when Steve does the task, it takes him 90 minutes. When Tina does the task, she only takes 60 minutes. So why don't we probably fire Steve and always send Tina out to do that task? But rather than having to trawl through that information, the system is going to make those recommendations. So if we move on to, and I've got a couple of examples on that. So if we just look at how that AI might come to life, we'll explore a couple of the foundational architecture points and pillars that are needed to support those use cases that we're doing. So of course, at the bottom, you've got the foundation of AI, and then 3 different types of use cases. So I'll talk about each one of those in turn. But first of all, picking up on the next slide with the architecture of how AI comes about. So how the AI engine works is really around observe, analyze, predict, and recommend, as maybe you would expect, but this is the nuts and bolts of it. So the solution is observing all the time, all actions, whether that's the status, a time event, how long did it take to do something, all of that information and all of that data is being captured and being observed by the machine. It's then analyzing that and looking at those data sources and maybe feeding in historic data and other data sources like the weather, like the traffic, and all of those things, and analyzing so that it can predict the outcome based on that historic data. The key is we don't lose the human judgment. I mean, heaven forbid we want machines to take over the world. Hopefully we've all still got some sense that humans should still be in charge. So you have that human judgment building into that predictive to tweak and fine tune and put in the nuance element of experience into that. And then the solution is going to recommend to the user the best outcome based on that information. And that's what we call the AI model training. So it's taking the information and learning and being trained based on human input and the specific needs of the organization. Underpinning that on the next slide is the event-based architecture. So all across the solution, we've got a true workflow engine, as we saw in the low code. So that's taking the inputs, the outputs, and the workflow that builds the AI engine to do this. But what Zinier have done is take away that complexity for our clients by developing micro applications. And we're not going to get into too much detail on the technical side. I'm a salesman after all. But what micro applications are small pieces of technology that focus on a task and do it extremely efficiently. So you and our customers can take those micro applications and deploy them specifically for their environment. And they don't have to look at the rest of the solution. They just want a micro app that tells them how to predict the maintenance downtime, how to predict which engineer should go to. So you can deploy those very quickly without having all of the technical nous that you might need to develop them under the bonnet. And literally a slide on each one of those. If we move to the generic use cases, this is how we're building a library and a capability for our customers to get that rapid time to value. At one end of the scale, you've got the generic use cases, things that would be relevant for any company, whether they're field service or maybe other industries as well, kind of off the shelf, out of the box capabilities that we build into our solution. Things like mentioned before, picture quality detection. AI can check whether a picture is blurry and whether that should pass or the tech should be asked to take that picture again. Taking a picture of an asset out in the field. This is just pure generic AI photo technology that can work and be leveraged. So is that the same asset that we took a picture of when we installed it, to do that verification and move away from the tech verifying it, or even a barcode or a smart code, or predict what the weather. Again, we're hooking into generic weather sites. This is not specifically for field service. This is not specifically for Zinier, but you can get very quick wins by hooking these into your workflow. So, point number one, and can be deployed as part of the initial phases of a deployment, because you don't need specific data. Then if we move on to the productized use cases, this is where we have taken AI use cases and made them specific for field service, so that they come and are ready to be deployed to our customers. But they're generic enough that they're useful for most, if not all, field service cases. But they do need your data, your input. They need a period of time to build that analysis up so that you can personalize them for your needs. When should the alarm ring? When should the recommendation go, based on the information that's within the system, and give those recommendations directly to your field techs or your back office people. So things like, predict when an SLA is going to be breached because someone's running late on another task, and so on. And these are things that we've done, they're pre-packaged. So as I said, in this micro app technology, so that you can take advantage of them relatively soon after go live with the first implementations, because they do need that data to build up, unless we can bring historic data in to get a faster start. So that's the productized use cases. And then the final one is the solution use cases, which are very specific to each business problem, where it's about your specific business situation. So a lot of, what if scenarios, forecasting examples, where it's the dynamic is specific to individual customers. And therefore we leverage, during an implementation and ongoing enhancement of the solution, we develop those with our customers to give you those true capabilities. But if you take all three together, the generic straight away up and running, the productized, which we've developed for field service specific capabilities, but need your data and your refinement, and then the solution, which is a use case specific to you that we move on for. And a wrap up on this section on the next slide is just three examples. So the micro app is looking at an image that's been sent from the tech. It's automatically filling in a form based on that information and reducing the time and human error, and increasing the tech, because we've taken a picture and part of that field tech's data has been updated. Looking at predictive task compliance. So is a task going to meet the requirements for the time that need to be in? Do they need to be resubmitted? Again, increasing the efficiency, reducing the time for report evaluation, and improving quality back to your customers. And then a solution example, predicting the PO work order priority. So that would be very specific to a customer use case. What priority should a work order be given based on inputs around that customer or dispatcher requirement. Okay, just conscious of the time, so moving on to the final section. Why does it matter to you? Because AI is it's very exciting, and being powered by AI is only a slogan. It's how does that transcend itself into meaning something for a business, for you guys and girls on the call. So how does that operate? Well, obviously, you're looking for cost advantage when you do anything like this. So some of the areas that we've seen from the benchmarks from our customers are areas like 45% first time to resolution, 2 to 3 times improvement in tech and back office productivity, 40%, you can read this out, 40% SLA compliant improvements in compliance. But all field service solutions are going to give you some kind of metric between a range and a range. And many take months and months to build up a value business case that will still land at somewhere within a range of numbers. And you go on a long journey of implementation to try and reach that goal. All systems can do that. What an AI low code solution brings to us on the next slide is that increased time to value, that decreased cost of implementation, and that decreased cost of ownership, because we can get things up and running much quicker, because the low code allows us to do it in a lower cost of implementation. But then because we're embracing AI during the implementation and ongoing within the business, the cost of ownership, not just of the system, but of what the system is trying to bring to my business, significantly decreases. So you get the benefits of a field service solution that you would need to look for with any system, but on top of that, the power of integrated low-code AI technology. And if I look at the sort of final slide, why is that important? And again, a McKinsey research here is saying that companies that get there early, survive, improve, more dynamic. So the benefits of selecting now and getting on with something far outweigh taking months and sometimes years to select a solution and looking at the nuance of percentages that you might get out of those benefits when you still have that cost, whereas we're looking at reducing that cost of ownership and implementing rapidly to get the foundations in. And we're talking, weeks and months to get a foundation in, not months and years, and then building and enhancing really allow you to get that true time to value into your business. And if anything, the last year has shown us is the world is a crazy place. Who knows what it's going to throw at us next? I thought I was going to go on holiday in a few weeks' time, but it looks like the UK are going to ban those again, unfortunately. But what I'm saying is the world is dynamic. The world is changing. You need a system and a solution and a partner that can be dynamic with you, that has that AI capability to truly bring together the best of the human and the machine to really leverage benefits for you, your business, and ultimately your customers. So hopefully that was a whistle-stop tour of our thoughts around this subject. And Tina's going to tell me whether I overran or not, or whether, but that's me.
All right, well, thank you so much, Steve. We'll go ahead and take some time for questions now. Just a reminder, please be sure to type your questions into the question box in the Zoom control panel.
Sure, fire away.
All right, so the first question, how widespread is the adoption of AI in field service?
My view is not hugely right now. I think it's a really hot topic, and people, whether that's suppliers and users of field service solutions, AI becomes a topic in most conversations, but often it's topic, and then you get into the detail and months and years of implementation that AI gets left and left and left. So it's important, I think, that AI really comes up the agenda of an implementation, so that it's part of the initial design and build, so that it doesn't get left to another day and often another day. So the summary is not nearly enough. It's on everybody's radar, but let's really start embracing it, I think.
All right, thank you. Second question, do AI solutions replace human jobs?
Absolutely not. I mean, I think I said somewhere in the presentation, no one ultimately wants to be ruled by a machine. and you can never replace the power of human insight. So I think what it does is it allows you to do more with the same. I mean, potentially more with less, depending, what stage a business is in terms of their base. But a growing business should be able to grow their business with the same back office headcounts, because the machine and the AI is doing much more of it. But my view, I don't want to be around when machines take over. So I would say it's finding the best combination of what AI can do to automate the routine tasks, leaving the humans to do the real value added and customer facing tasks.
All right, thank you. Another question. How quickly can you implement an AI solution?
Very, no, reasonably. I think if you say very, then people don't believe it. So I'm impressed, as I said at the beginning. I've been at Zinier since the start of the year. I've been impressed with how quickly we can deploy our solutions. It is weeks. I mean, we're working with a company now that will be live on their first iteration of Zinier within 6 weeks. Obviously, they will grow. That's foundation, and they will grow. So, but it's about getting in quickly. Then the generic AI use cases can be part of that initial go live. Then the productized AI that need your data are probably 2 to 3 months after that, because you need enough data, enough confidence in that data to flip the switch to say, okay, AI, you now take over these processes. So I would say you can get a base in a couple of months, and then you're probably looking at a few months after that to really start driving the benefits of AI.
All right, thank you. Another question. What does AI automation look like for field service scheduling?
Well, scheduling is in English. Sorry, I'm teasing. It is, I mean, scheduling is at the heart of what field service is about, and automating that scheduling capability is absolutely fundamental. And for me, it comes back to the slide we had where you got about 20 or 30 things all feeding into the center that the dispatcher or the legacy system has to control with in a linear way, because it's got linear workflow, throwing in multiple metrics, multiple data points, multiple variables, and being able to analyze, predict, and recommend all of that within seconds is where you move to the next level of scheduling. So you move away from it just being how long does it take Steve to get from site A to site B based on an optimized route, or who's the most skilled person to do this job, which all scheduling can do, to really throwing in huge amounts of variables into the mix, and it recommending, finishing on this point, the solution recommending what it thinks you should do, and then you simply accepting or rejecting that recommendation to drive the speed of response back to your customers.
All right. And then one last question. When talking to my IT colleagues, how do I talk about the benefits of low code or convince them?
So I think, well, first of all, I'm more than happy to speak to your IT colleagues with you to position that, but to get them interested in the first place it's really about speed and agility and visualizing. So you saw on the screen that the screenshot, you can visualize a workflow and it's drag and drop. So I want a field to just use a real example. So the standard workflow says, you arrive on site, you do your job, you leave. But for this particular customer environment, I want them to do a health and safety check when they arrive. Then I want them to take a picture. Then I want them to get the customer to sign that they're safe to work. Then I go and do my job. And then at the end, I want to add 3 more processes to get the customer satisfaction score, to get the a sign off, and so on and so on. Adding those half a dozen extra steps that I just mentioned is literally dragging a task onto a screen, giving it a decision tree, calling it what you want that task to be. And within minutes, you've added 6 more steps within that workflow, or taken 6 out from our simple process without coding, without going under the bonnet of the solution. So you can deploy very, very quickly, and you're not having to come back to the vendor or to a partner to do that. You have that capability within your grasp.
All right,
Whoever asked the question or any of the questions, I'm more than happy to answer. I think if Tina shows you my email address on the last slide, then feel free to send me a message directly, and I'll provide you with any more information that I can.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Steve. We appreciate everyone being here today. Thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.